There we go.
It's crooked.
So hi.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, we're somewhere in Ohio.
Yep.
At a rest stop. And we've been talking about this memory I had. And we figured it would make a great video.
Yeah.
So we had to stop to get food and gas.
Yep.
Figured why not just tell you the story.
Yep.
This is a little fairy tale.
It's a horror. It's what's like a... I guess a lot of fairy tales are kind of horrific.
It's a fairy tale about palliative care. And how I was forced, against my will, to consult with palliative care about the end of my life.
Wow.
Now you might be thinking, but Shane, you didn't die. True. And that was a big reason why the whole story is so weird.
Well, that's why it's interesting.
Horrible.
If you had died, it would have made sense then.
Right.
You know?
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show.
It's time
To talk
about
our lives.
But this wasn't recent.
No, this happened when I was 18 years old.
And I think we should, before you get into the story, I think you should explain what palliative care is for people who, I don't know if other countries use the same term.
Yeah.
You know.
Palliative care is end-of-life planning. Things like your will, your wishes for like whether or not doctors are allowed to resuscitate you. Things like that, like pain management at end of life. It's very akin to like hospice. Not the same, but they kind of go hand in hand. It's a very death-oriented thing. You don't do palliative care
if they think
unless you have a terminal, like you're about to die type deal. So that's palliative care.
Yeah. All right, so at the ripe old age of 18, poor young Shane,
with all my life ahead of me,
a freshman in college, his blog was getting bigger and bigger at the time.
Yep.
It was, you know, the first time in his life where he was like, wow, this could be my career. Like, I'm really visualizing my future.
I was happier than I'd been in a while. I was like, I'm going to be a writer.
Yeah, like, stuff is happening. And at the same time, Shane needed a feeding tube. And this had been going on for a while, like deciding would it be like a stomach feeding tube. He just wasn't eating enough and he was too skinny and the doctor was like, you need a feeding tube.
Yeah.
So they were looking at like the, you know, the G tube where it's actually in your stomach, that option, and the surgery was kind of risky in the way Shane sits. There was nowhere to put it and they were like, that's like, it's not a really good option because like you can see that, like you can't see Shane's stomach. Yeah, it would be underneath and that's just like, putting a site there with like a port seems like, at least to me, and I guess the doctors, a bad idea.
The professionals said it's not going to work.
They said it's a bad idea. So the other option was a nasal feeding tube, and that's what Shane used for a bunch of years.
A while.
But in the beginning, like putting in a nasal feeding tube is not an easy thing to do. It doesn't come naturally to people.
Something that doctors and nurses are trained in medical school how to do.
Yeah.
And this was going to be something that my parents and eventual like brother and Hannah would end up doing on their own in my house every night. Yeah. So like we had to know
how to do it,
what we were doing so I didn't die.
And like I'll just give you a little inside scoop. It's very much a like joint act between the person putting it in and Shane. Like it's very choreographed, so much so that like the first time I was doing it, Shane's dad was sitting with me trying to like help, and they were both like, you just need to watch Shane, like watch when he swallows, now go. Like,
or like
it was
feel
when he swallows, look at his eyes. Like I was like, oh my god, I don't know what I'm looking for. Like
I'm not a nurse.
Yeah, like I get that your dad knows what you mean by like the eye. Like it was so it's very intense. Once you do it, it's totally fine. Like Shane's dad was like, it's no big deal, you know.
Right.
Stick it in now, but
in the very beginning, when this was all brand new, we didn't know any of that.
Welcome to our July HelloFresh video. Today we are making shawarma spiced chickpea bowls with pistachio rice and garlicky white sauce.
I'm so excited. When you find a meal that you love...
We've made this before.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But you want to make it over and over and over and over and over and over.
Okay. HelloFresh is the first carbon-neutral meal kit company, and nearly all packaging is recyclable. They offer veggie, pescatarian, and fit and wholesome meals to make it easy to stick to your goals. Plus, you can update your delivery address and enjoy HelloFresh at your vacation destination with just a click. Plans are flexible, so they work with your ever-changing schedule. You can choose from more than 55 weekly options featuring seasonal, pre-portioned ingredients picked at peak ripeness. Go to HelloFresh.com and use code Squirmy and Grubs 16 for up to 16 free meals across 7 boxes and 3 surprise gifts. Again, go to HelloFresh.com and use code Squirmy and Grubs 16 for up to 16 free meals across 7 boxes and 3 surprise gifts.
Yum.
Yum is right.
Wow. I could not be more excited.
Let's go.
When this was all brand new, we didn't know any of that. So the procedure was to have me be admitted to the hospital. I had like a hospital in Delaware. It was a specialty hospital for a week-long hospital stay, even though I was completely fine, just so that every night the nurses could train my dad and me how to put a feeding tube in.
Feels like that could have been done in like 2 days.
Well, after a day, I was like, I'm ready to be. I got it last night, like, we can do it at home now.
We did it.
I had to be there for a week.
Wow.
But the point here is, it was a healthy hospital admission.
Yeah, it was a training. You were being trained.
Sick.
Yeah.
That is why, on, like, day 3 or 4, when I was, like, doing homework out in the atrium, like, just biding my time for that night's feeding tube.
Waiting to go home.
And I was approached by 2 individuals who introduced themselves as palliative care. And me, being 18, was like, huh? What's that? And they told me, we're here to help you prepare for the end of your life. And I looked around and I was like, oh no, like, I'm here for the feeding tube thing. Like, no, maybe that guy over there. And they were like, you're Shane Burcaw? And I was like, yeah.
They're like, yeah, the feeding tube.
The feeding, like, you're doing palliative care. And I was like, what? Huh? Am I dying? Like, have I not been told? Like, what's happening? They went on to say, no. Like, we are preparing for when you die. I was like, that doesn't help.
I don't think that's a really big distinction. I think that is exactly what you were asking if they were doing. Like, what?
Yeah. And I mean, they weren't saying explicitly, you're about to die. But they were like, we need to get your will in order. We need to get your do not resuscitate in order, all that stuff.
Yeah, something that they don't do for any other 18-year-old, you know.
Yeah. They weren't going around to everyone there doing this. They, like, picked me out.
Yeah.
And were like, we need to keep an eye on him.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you how deeply it affected me. Like, I, at that point, was happy, healthy, like I said, like, eyes on the future, and all of a sudden there are medical professionals being like, well,
yeah,
you might want to get your will figured out. Like, it put me into a bit of a tailspin, where I was like, oh my god, like, am I about to die? And that was something I had to work through emotionally and mentally for years after that. It was not an easy thing to be told at 18.
Did you do the meeting with them where you, like, went through all that stuff?
I don't remember. I think they ended up, like, I can
imagine your parents being like, no.
My mom and dad weren't there.
Yeah, that's so, I get that you're 18, so it's probably fine, but still, that's...
I remember they left me with a folder of, like, paperwork, and I don't think I filled it out.
Yeah. You don't have a will.
I don't have a will.
So.
I don't have a...
Which we should get on. We both are adults. We will get a will. I know people are going to be like, you should really have a will. You're married.
I know we should, but at 18, it was
most
like
18-year-olds,
not on my priority list.
And I have not yet been approached by anybody to tell me to get a will. Like, no medical professionals. No one has been like, where's your will?
And I get, like, yeah, feeding tubes are associated with, like, not doing well health-wise. But
they're
in
also-
every
but
other
that-
area of my life,
Yeah.
health-wise, I was fine.
And that's also just like not, I think that's like a stigmatized
Yeah, I do too.
association. Lots of
Yeah.
people use feeding tubes to thrive,
Right.
you know?
Yep.
So,
And it helped me thrive
yeah,
for like 8 years.
you used
And then
it.
I stopped using it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
and I don't have a will. I don't do it without a will.
Oh boy. Wow, that's really a lot.
Anyway, that was my little journey with palliative care. And this is not, I know that field of medical whatever is good and it's important.
Yeah.
This is nothing against them.
Yeah.
But an odd time
Yep.
to do that with me, I think.
Maybe not the best time.
So yeah, that's the story. We need to like get back on the road.
Gotta get on the road. It's time.
Alright. Bye everyone.
Bye, everyone.